we need something that we can get in for very little money that has a high upside potential, where we don't have to fix anything, where we don't have to estimate repairs. And as we stumbled into land, it literally checked all these boxes.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB & Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 169. My guest today, Jack Bosch, owns rental houses, commercial properties, and even large apartment buildings. However, his main passion is for buying and selling lots and unimproved land. Jack and his wife began investing in land back in 2002, and it took them only 18 months to make over $1 million. Now Jack is known as the Land Guy, and he teaches his strategies to investors all over the world. Jack is also the #1 best-selling author of the financial literacy book, Forever Cash: Break the Earn-Spend Cycle, Take Charge of Your Life, and Build Everlasting Wealth. Jack also hosts the successful podcast, Forever Cash Life Real Estate Podcast. Jack, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Why don't we start with you just telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got started investing in real estate?
Absolutely, would love to. So as you mentioned, and as everyone can, I think, tell from the accent, I'm originally from Germany. I came here to this country in 1997. So about 21 years ago, with alone, with literally a couple of suitcases, to finish my college degree. A few weeks into being here, I met my wife, who is also an immigrant from Honduras, Central America, and kind of hit it off and decided to stay here in the country. And now, fast forward, we are both American citizens. We're married 17 years already. We have a beautiful 11-year-old daughter. And to make a long story short, after finishing my college degree, I basically did what everyone told me to do, which was I was trained and groomed to do, which was go get a job, right? So got a job. Wasn't a very high paying job, but it was a job with some upside potential. But it included 100% travel. So I was traveling literally from Monday mornings till Friday night. Would come home only for the weekends, and obviously that's not the life I had envisioned. So within a couple of years, we realized this entire kind of like, if this is the American dream, then I kind of signed up for the wrong dream here, because that wasn't what I had envisioned my life to be. And I was never at home. I was never with my love, right, with my wife. I was eating only hotel food. I was working 80 hours a week, literally. And after a few years, it was like, okay, something's got to change. The problem was I couldn't leave that job because I came here through, once you go to college for a year here, you get a work visa for a year. And that company was able to change that work visa into an immigration visa, like what's called an H-1B visa. And you have to stay with that company while you go to the immigration process and you go to the process of getting the permanent residency, the green card. And the moment you quit, you basically lose that visa and you have 60 days to find another job, or you have to leave the country. So I was kind of forced to stay in that job, work my butt off. But at the same time, my wife and I sat down and we literally said, cannot go on like this. We cannot do this forever. We got to find something else. So we looked around and we found real estate, dabbled with it for several years, literally, until we found the niche that just made our business explode like a rocket or go up like a rocket. And that was actually land flipping. So we stumbled into that without really looking for land. It just happened that we tried one technique and we kind of developed our own technique. We in a certain way, we sent out some direct mail and we got a ton of responses and they all owned land. So we ended up buying our first piece of land for $400 and sell it for $4,000. The next one we bought for $500, sold for $10,000, and so on and so forth. And shortly after, we were like, let's not even look at houses anymore. And for several years, all we did was just land before we added additional things. And we continue doing land in addition to houses and multifamily and things like that now.
Wow, so there's a lot there. Before we get into the land and how you stumbled into that, what were some of your experiences early on with the different types of real estate investing you were trying?
The experiences was that I knew nothing about it, right? The experiences was when you come from another country, you're learning English, right? I mean, I had English in school in Germany in high school, but it was more or less a broken English. So I was still learning English, and there's yet within real estate, there's a completely different language, right? They talk about 2x4s, and they talk about drywall, and they talk about I don't know what that different kind of all this different kind of terminology that I didn't even know what those words mean. Like literally, the first time I heard the word deed, I thought it's had to do with church, because in church they tell you to do good deeds, right, not bad deeds. So stuff like that, and so more than anything, I had no confidence in myself because I had no capability, no knowledge. The way real estate is being built and structured and done is completely different here than it is in other countries. Like in Germany, houses are built with bricks, houses are built with basements, and so on. If you live in Phoenix, Arizona, there's barely any basements, and houses are built with wood, right? Wood and drywall and things like that. So just I didn't have a clue. The first deal I tried to do was a wholesale deal, right? I read about it. We drove around. We found some boarded up houses, and we figured out the addresses of the owners. We sent them a letter, and one actually called us back and was willing to give us a triplex for $45,000, which turned out to be a horrible deal, but I didn't know about it, right? So I was excited. We were excited. We put it on there, put an ad in the newspaper. We had almost 30 people call us, and not a single one bought it because they knew it was a bad deal, but we didn't, right? So it just have to do with just a lack of knowledge, a lack of capability, a lack of confidence, really, also, and not even know where to start. I didn't know if it cost $1,000 or $10,000 to fix a bathroom or a roof or a foundation, and that place needed all of that, right? So luckily we backed out of that deal, and we realized, we sat back down. Obviously, I've been blessed that I have my wife as my business partner, and she is smarter than I am, and has a master's in finance and all this kind of stuff. So we were able to sit together and really talk about this. And we was like, we need something that we can get in for very little money that has a high upside potential, where we don't have to fix anything, where we don't have to estimate repairs. And as we stumbled into land, it literally checked all these boxes because we're flipping land like other people flip houses. And except for there's no house. So therefore, there's no roof repairs. There's no estimates. There's no contractors. There's no mold. Nobody even has to show it. We don't have to go see it. We can use Google Maps and Google Earth to go see it. So it's really much, much simpler. And those were the struggles we had at the beginning, that we just didn't know anything about it. And therefore, when we had no money, we had no credit. So we couldn't even go and get a rehab. Plus, I was traveling 100%. I mean, I couldn't even do a rehab if I wanted to. So we were just traveling left and right. So we needed to find something that fit our situation. And land did and continues to do.
So when you sat down with your wife to discuss this, what was it in that conversation that led you to say, well, hey, maybe we should try land?
Well, really, actually nothing. What happened is, what we came across wasn't land, but it was tax liens and tax deeds. That was our second step. After backing out of that rehab deal and a wholesale deal and canceling that contract, we moved on, and we learned about tax liens and tax deeds. And it blew my mind that in the United States, as I know now, there's $5 billion a year going to tax sale. So we saw these tax liens in Arizona and in California tax deeds. And we realized that potentially you can buy properties as a bargain at a low price. They have high upside potential. You don't necessarily have to do a whole lot if you just wholesale them or flip them. So we attended these auctions, but we again failed because we attended the tax lien auction, bought a few tax liens, and they were redeemed 3 weeks later, and we made something like $3.40 in interest. And it's like, okay, well, that's not what we want to do. Plus, if you really want to make an income from tax liens, you got to invest substantial money into it, or you got to find the deals that you can foreclose on. And again, we didn't know what we were looking for. So secondly, we went to California. Actually, Michelle went to California one time for a tax deed auction with all the money we had, which was like $3,500. And she was outbid. And the only thing that qualified then in that price range was 3 pieces of land that had starting bids of $1,000 each. But in short notice, these were bid up to $10,000, $15,000 or $20,000. And basically she came back with a tail between her legs and is like, well, I got outbid on everyone and we didn't get anything. But then we had a thought. So really that none of that worked, but we had a thought in that end. And that thought was, well, if somebody doesn't want their property anymore and stops paying property taxes, we looked at the state statutes and we realized that in a state like California, for example, it takes 5 to 6 years before that property comes up for auction. Well, if somebody's today that makes up their mind today that they no longer want their property, that property comes up on auction in like 2024 or 25. But if that person decides right now they don't want this property anymore, what if we could contact them? What if we could get their mailing addresses? What if we could get their contact information and just send them a friendly letter? And that's what we figured out. That's what we did. So we started sending out letters to people who owed property taxes, and we gotten a whole bunch of response rates from that. But funny enough, every single response rate that we gotten was a landowner. Even though we also sent to house owners, only the landowners responded. So we were like, what are we going to do with that now? Well, we decided to make super low offers, and that led to those $400 deals, $500 deals that we made $4,000 and then $10,000 on.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. Wow, that was quite a light bulb moment that you and your wife had.
It was. And now, fast forward to now, soon enough after that, we realized that really we don't have to go just after tax delinquent properties. We can go after any land. And soon enough, we realized that we're not even messing with houses. So between 2003, when we started that, and 2009, we literally just focused on land. And then 2009, when America was for sale, when the big crash happened, we ended up started buying houses, and then afterwards started buying apartment complexes and so on and so forth. But on the land side, we really realized, well, if these people truly don't want these properties, whether tax delinquent or not, now we don't even care about. We don't even get tax delinquent lists anymore. We just get lists of people that own property worth $10,000 to $100,000. That's our sweet spot. And we send out letters, and we get anywhere from 5 to 20% response rates on our letters, and which is multiple what house flippers get. And we can do a lot of deals that way. And without ever having to look at the properties, without ever having to fix anything. So we realized for our knowledge level, we had this is the right market and the right deals. And also what we realized is that there's very little competition in the area because everyone else goes after houses.
Can you explain to us how it is you're making these kinds of profits off of investing in land? And maybe start with just explaining, what type of land are you actually buying?
Right. I'll start with that, exactly. So what we're looking for is 3 types of land. Type number 1 is a little bit harder to get, but very lucrative, which is infill lots. So it's a lot in the city. There's a street, 35 houses, 1 empty lot, right? If you can get that lot, if that lot might be worth $80,000, you can often get these lots for, let's say, $40,000, and then go flip it to a builder for $65,000. The builder is happy, you got a discount. He builds a $150,000 home on there, and if it's a neighborhood of like 300, 350, sells it for $350, he's happy. So these are kind of the lots that we buy, and then we wholesale directly to builders. The second kind of list, kind of group of land that we like to go is right in the outskirts of big cities. So basically, where a big city ends, where LA ends, where Arizona, where Phoenix ends, where Dallas ends, where Atlanta, where Georgia ends, where Miami ends, and so on and so forth. Just in the outskirts of town, or another word for that is the path of growth. Right, the path of growth around these cities. The market is up, the market is growing, the cities are growing, and even if the market is settling a little bit right now, it's still growing. There's enough demand there for people to build, so the cities are growing outwards again. Well, we want to be just outside of the city, a few miles outside the city, 5, 10, 20 miles outside the city, where the cost of properties is way cheaper than in the city. An acre in the city might be worth $300,000. An acre 5, 10 miles outside of the city limits, is worth only $30,000. So we pick up these lots for $3,000 to $5,000, and we go flip them for $20,000 to somebody, and then that person either is a financial investor that wants to hold on to it and wait for the city to approach and the value to go up, or it's somebody who wants to just have more space, wants to live a little bit more in nature, but doesn't want to live in the middle of nowhere. Because if they're 10 miles outside the city, guess what? They drive 15 minutes, they're in the city, they're at the grocery store, they're at the movie theaters, they're at the restaurants, they're at the medical doctors, and everywhere they need to be. And the third kind of property we focus on is larger recreational land. So the property is an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours outside of big cities, where there's a creek going through it, where there's trees on there, where people go there to go hunting, where people go there to bring their RV, to build a cabin, to go put the bonfire, to have fun, like really more recreational land. But about every time I go into a room and I talk about this, I ask people, who of you would like to have a ranch out there of like 40 acres, 20 acres, 80 acres? And about half of the hands go up. So about half of the population in the United States would love to have a piece of land like that they can go out in the weekend and just horse around and have a good time. Well, those are the lots that you can get. Those outskirts lots and the big acreage, you can literally get them for 5 to 25 cents on the dollar. And then if you get them that cheap, you can sell them in two ways. We either do a classic wholesale, where we just go and list it at half of market price and sell it. So you take a 40-acre parcel that's worth, I don't know, $60,000 in a rural area. You put it on the contract for $10,000. You go put it on the market for $30,000. At that bargain price, it'll sell very quickly, and you make $20,000 in the middle. And the other way to sell it is actually with seller financing. So you take a property worth, I think, a deal we just done not too long ago is a property worth about $35,000. We put it on the contract, or we bought it for $3,500, actually for $3,100. So just about 8% of market value. And then we sold it for $31,000 with a $4,000 down payment. Actually, no, a $5,000 down payment. $5,000 down payment plus a $500 closing fee, so $5,500 down. So if you do the math, we paid $3,100 or $3,500 for it, and we gotten $5,500 back. So we already ahead of the game, right? We already made a profit from that alone. But now we're getting $340 a month for the next 12 years on the deal. So our total profit on that deal will be something like $45,000, and
wow.
That's a beautiful kind of model. So you can do cash wholesale or seller financing and actually create cash flow from land. And if you do it the proper way, you usually get almost all the money that you even paid for the property back when you go sell it in form of the down payment.
If you are thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition 5 years ago, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy at RCB and Associates. Chad is a professional healthcare insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com. So how are you finding these deals?
So we sent direct mail. And we sent direct mail to landowners only that are where the properties are worth $10,000 to $100,000, usually in those areas. So we don't send to downtown Denver necessarily, unless we're searching for an infill lot. But usually, if we're going after the second two kind of properties, we pick a county that's just in the outskirts of a big city, or perhaps a county outside of that, let's say 10, 20 miles outside of the city. Or we go into the more rural areas that have something nice to offer, like some rolling hills, some nice areas where people like to be. And we get a list either from a list service or from the county, and then we basically just send them a friendly letter. So we have split tested literally hundreds of letters, and came to one letter that is kind of outperforms everyone else and any other letter we've ever used. And that letter gets on the low side a 4 or 5% response rate typically, and on the high side a 15 to 20% response rate.
Wow, so that's pretty fantastic. Have you ever lost money doing this?
Very few times. The answer, of course, is yes, but very, very few times, and usually only, and it's only about a handful of times, 5 to 10 times we've lost money, and we've done 4,000 deals. So really, the amount of losses is very negligible. And then on top of it, if you only pay $1,000 for the property, what's the most you can lose? $1,000. And that's actually one of the key things why we got started in that. Because when we looked at that first deal, it was the owner was a guy who was just going through divorce. He was moving out of state. He just wanted to have a clean slate and start a new life in a different state. He was moving from Arizona to Colorado. He had this lot in northern Arizona in a small town, and he just didn't want it anymore. And he was willing to give it to us for $400. He basically told us, you can have it if you want to. And we made him a $400 offer which included a couple $100 in back taxes even. And he accepted that. And literally the guy across the street from it bought it for $4,000 from us. So those are kind of the lots we focus on. And we, so it's people that own these kind of property. The property was worth around $10,000. And now I forgot the question. So if you can remind me of the question.
Losing money. How have you lost?
Oh, losing money. Yes. So if you only spent $1,000 on a deal like that, or $400, we basically said to ourselves, well, the worst case scenario here, the apocalyptic worst case scenario, is that we lose $400, right? If this thing is like completely garbage, we lose $400. But we already had seen it on Google Maps. We had seen it on Google Earth. There's a house right next door. There's a house on the other side. It's extremely unlikely that there's anything wrong with that property. We checked it on the Environmental Protection Agency website to see if it's listed for any kind of chemical spills or anything like that. None of it was the case. So we're like, there's really no way we can lose money. So the few times we have lost money was when we did not follow our own instructions. And our instructions in a short way, obviously we now teach this to others. We have students all over the world. The short way is that once you have a deal on a contract, you want to make sure that it's buildable. You want to make sure that you can actually sell it, that it's worth what you think it's worth, and so on. And we became cocky over time, to be real honest. We thought, oh, we got this, and we have done now 3,000 deals. Let's do a bunch more deals. And we did not do the research after we had a property in a contract on a package of about 10 properties. And what had happened, we looked at the aerial picture. They looked very pretty. And next door were houses, and there was a few empty lots in between, which is all the lots we bought. And there were houses everywhere. So it was like, hey, if there's houses everywhere, these lots are buildable. We don't even have to look into it. Well, what happened is that the city had changed the zoning rules and had changed the minimum size lot that you need to build a house on. These were all quarter-acre lots, and all these houses that we saw in the aerial pictures were built before they made that change. So now you need half an acre to build on these properties, and we were buying a bunch of quarter-acre properties. So as a result, they were really not useful for anything other than to sell to the neighbor. So some of them, we actually didn't lose money on all of them. And if we take it as an aggregate, we still didn't lose money. But on 5 of them, we lost $1,000 each because we paid $2,000 for them, and we just basically got rid of them for like $999, just lost $1,000 each. But on some of them, we actually had 2 next to each other, Now we have a buildable lot. We were able to sell those at like $10,000 plus, and a couple of them we actually were able to sell to the neighbor for like $3,000, $4,000. So bottom line, if you take this all together, we did lose money on 5 of them, but we made money on the other 5. So as a blended rate, we actually made money. But usually, as I said, if you only pay a couple of $1,000s for a lot, worst case scenario is you can only lose a couple of $1,000s on those lots.
So what kind of due diligence do you typically do then? And what are some of the pitfalls that you're looking to avoid?
Right. So the due diligence we do is twofold. We do very little due diligence. I mean, we have threefold. Before we go into an area, and it's part of also the course that I teach people now, the very first part of that is we show people how to select an area where there's lots of property that are selling quickly. Because are there areas in the United States where there's millions of properties, they're almost worthless, not millions, but thousands of properties, they're worthless and they're not going to sell? Yes, there are. You don't want to, but you want to stay away from those areas. So the very first step we do is a little bit of analysis into the areas we're thinking about going into. We're looking at websites like Realtor.com and Zillow and Trulia and so on, and we're making sure that there is properties that are actually selling in those areas. And they're selling at prices that are interesting to us. Once we've established that, we then go into those areas and we get lists and we send out our letters. Once people contact us back, we ask them in the letter to call us back. Once they call us back, we do a little bit research, but at this point, we're only determining what we call the value estimate. We're only determining what these properties are approximately worth. So we're only doing a value analysis on these properties. We're not checking out every property for access to utilities, for water levels, for if any kind of squirrels live there, they're protected or any kind of stuff. We don't do any of that. We just go very quickly, a 5 to 10 minute check. What is this property worth? And then based on that, we make our offers. And then once we made our offers, then we get our accepted offers. And at that moment, we do a deep dive. Because now our money is on the line. Now, before we enter into the marketing, we start putting listings together and things like that. We are really checking Environmental Protection Agency. We're checking, can this property be buildable, right? We learn from our mistakes. We call the city and then the county and asking them, is this property buildable? What are the setbacks? Can I put mobile homes there? Where's the electricity? What utilities are to the property, right? Is it sloping? Can you build something from that aspect? Is the road paved or unpaved? Are there an HOA? Is there HOA fees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? What are the back taxes on the property, if there's any? And we really find out all these things because when we go sell the property, number one, we need to know this stuff anyway. But secondly, it also gives us an idea and make sure that we buying a high quality property. And if we find anything that is seriously wrong with that property, what we can do is we can always back out of the contract because our contract has a provision that allows us to back out any time for any reason. Right? So it's a very good provision in there, and people sign it because the people we go after is not the little grandma that doesn't know what she has. It's people who just don't want these properties anymore. They're sick and tired of paying property taxes. They're mostly still paying property taxes, but they just don't want their property anymore. They have moved on in their life. Many have inherited the properties. Now it's sucking money out of their pocket in property taxes. They just don't want that deal anymore. They want to get rid of it. It's kind of the garage sale mentality, right? They're selling the bicycle worth $100 for $15 because they want to have it out of their garage. And it's the same kind of thing here. And then so they're happy to sign a contract that gives us the right to back out anytime for any reason. So we do that, and then we also start the opening. We open escrow with the title company, so we get the title report. We know if there's issues on that, and then we either go buy it, or what most of our students do right now, they immediately go market it while you have it on a contract, and then do a double closing or an assignment and do a classic wholesale, pass the deal on to somebody else, make $5,000 to $30,000 in the middle, sometimes $50,000 in the middle, and move on to the next deal.
Wow. So who is doing all this work? Is it you and your wife, or do you have a team and employees helping you?
Well, at this point, we have a team to help us with it, but most of these steps can actually be outsourced. So, for example, the mailing can be outsourced to the list can be received from a list service. There's plenty of list services out there that can get that information, and then the mailing can be outsourced to a mailing house. At the beginning, we would literally sit around the kitchen table, print, fold, stuff, and seal letters, and put stamps on them. But obviously, that we no longer do that. We send it out to a letter to a printing house. There's a mailing house that has a minimum of 50 letters that you. As soon as you hit 50 letters, you can outsource it to them. Like there's some mailing houses that a lot of my house flipping friends use. They have a minimum of 10,000, while the one we use has a minimum of 50 letters. So pretty much everyone can use them. And as soon as you send like 700 letters or more, it has a huge price drop, and it literally becomes cheaper than the material and the stamp that you would buy if you do it yourself. So it's a cheaper way. It's a cheap way to mail out. It's a hands-off way to mail out. Then when people call in, we have a relationship with a call center that already knows us. So our students go to them and say like, hey, I'm a Jack Bosch student. I'm a land profit generator student. And they're like, okay, great. And they have our script already set up. They have everything set up. They have trained people, and they can take the phone calls for you. Then the only piece we actually still to this day do to ourselves is we make the offers ourselves. So, but even the research now can be done. You can train somebody on how to do that value analysis for you. It's not hard. It's just simple. It's the same as everywhere else. You run comparables. You can run comparables on land just like you run comparables on houses. So you can have somebody to do that. Some people have their uncle do it. Some people have a virtual assistant in the Philippines or so do it for them at like $4 an hour. So it's not expensive to do that either. And then the offers, we still determine to this day what the actual offer amount is that somebody's being given. And but then even the offers can be sent out to the mailing house if you make more than 50 offers at a time. And then the marketing again can be outsourced. You can hire a realtor for it. You can do it yourself, or you can train somebody to do it for you.
It sounds as though you're making offers on the property as part of your first way of connecting with the landowner. Is that correct, or are you connecting with them?
It's the second time we connect with the landowner. The first letter is a friendly but very, very effective letter that basically says, hey, you own properties in XYZ counties and state. We're looking to buy properties there. There's a few key sentences in there that we add there that makes them really want to call us. And then they pick up the phone and they call us. And when they call us or they call the call center, we go through a list of several questions that we ask them to kind of get some information from them about the property and about their level of motivation. And then based on that, we then do the deal analysis, the value analysis, and then we make them an offer in writing. So, and the reason why do we make an offer in writing is there is no competition. I mean, there's barely any competition in this market. There's a few counties in the country where there's a little bit of competition, but many of these 3,000 counties that exist in the United States have literally almost no competition. So I don't have to get on the phone. So I'm not a phone person, for example. I designed this business, Michelle and I designed this business such that we don't have to be on the phone. So the people call, the call center picks it up, and then we make our offer in writing. So in essence, we never talk to a seller. Wow. We never talk to a seller. And then on the selling side, we have somebody who is just really good at selling. Then we talk to the buyers, and that person then talks to the buyers. But so we talk more to the buyers than to the sellers because the sellers is a dime a dozen, and we can literally automate that process for them. But it's the second time. So it's the second step that allows us to make the offer. They call us, and then we send them an offer in writing. And we give them like 10 days to accept the offer, and which is kind of unheard of in the other real estate world because everyone is like, if there's a good deal, whether it's multifamily or single family, if there's a good deal, you got to jump on that deal today, right? So in the land industry, it's different because, again, these properties are not on the MLS. They're not listed on the open market. These are people that have owned these properties sometimes for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and we are the only ones that's sending them a letter. So in the next 10 days, nobody else is going to go make them an offer. So we can literally send it to them by letter, have them think about it, have them discuss it with their family, and then sign it and send it back to us. And that truly allows us to design this business around our lifestyle. And that is actually very, very important to my wife and I. We love being involved with our daughter's school. We love being involved in social aspects and things like that. And we love taking our day slow. And I don't like to jump off of the dinner table just to meet with a seller. So we only make offers once a week, and we give them 1 week to accept the offers. So if somebody calls in on a Friday, they might take until next week Thursday until we make the offer. And I don't think we have ever lost a deal because of that, because it just allows you to design it around your lifestyle.
So I know you teach these techniques on how to invest in land and wholesale and do all the things that you were just talking about. But how easy is it to learn? I mean, for our listeners, what would they have to go through or learn to be able to do what you're doing?
Well, let me say every real estate investment technique requires work. There's no such thing like get rich quick. There's no such thing. Every presentation I start with a disclaimer that basically says that most people that do any kind of stuff will never have any results because they don't take action, right? So, and that's the true for anything in life, So if you don't take action, nothing will learn. Having said that, particularly if I compare it to multifamily, like as we are right now, I'm in the middle of closing on a 147 unit apartment complex. The complexity of the purchasing process of that is, as you know, because you own apartment complexes, is quite sophisticated and quite involved. It is absolutely worth it because you can make millions of dollars afterwards from that deal and cash flow into six figures and all this kind of stuff. But it is extremely involved in getting this all going between financing and raising funds and getting the PPM done, and it's expensive and so on and so forth. But it's worth it. If I compare it to that, doing land flips, it's like real estate 101, and it's like basically playing in the sandbox, as simple as it is. Because really, I just laid out the steps, and these are all the steps that are involved. So having said that, doing the actual steps and making sure that you keep doing the steps will require a little bit diligence, will require consistency, and will require a will to actually make a change in your life, right? If somebody's like in a job 40 hours and then goes watches football and sleeps in on the weekends and go partying, stuff like that, and if they're happy with their life, they're not going to be successful in any industry, in anything, if they're not willing to change the way how they live their day. Right? So having said that, it's by far the easiest way of real estate investing that I've ever come across, because literally all you do is you send out some letters, take some phone calls, do a little online research on Zillow, on Realtor and Trulion, on the county website, and then send out an offer. Once you get the offer accepted, you create a listing on these websites, and we have in our program, we have a detailed step-by-step guideline on how to create the killer listing, and then you get some people contacting you, you agree on a price, and you go sell it. I mean, that's it. For the last 10 years or 11 years, I have not looked at the single property that we've bought and sold, because what is there to look at on land? Like, I don't have to watch trees. I can see whether it's sloping on Google Maps, on Google Earth. There's topo maps websites out there. I can do Google Street View. I can see exactly how it looks like. There's no need for me to ever walk away from my laptop, and I can literally do this on the beach with a Wi-Fi access and a tablet.
Early on, you talked about coming here from Germany and having to learn our language and then also learn the language of real estate. What is the language of buying land?
The language of buying land is around acres. So instead of talking about square foot, you talk about acres. You talk about road access. You talk about depth of wells. Because if you're in the western United States, or in the rural areas, the way to get to water is by drilling a well. You talk about water rights. You talk about again like buildability, zoning rules, and things like that, setbacks, how far, like if you have a small lot, you definitely want to check with the county and see what the setbacks for the lot are, because if you have a lot that's only 60 feet wide and you have to, whatever you build on it has to be 20 feet away from the border of the property on each side. Well, if you go in 20 feet from one side, 20 feet from one side, you only have a 20 feet wide building envelope. which is enough to build a house on it, but you got to know those things, right? So the language of land includes these things, but other than that, it includes words like percolation tests, right? In order, because in the rural areas, there's no city sewer, so you have to put in a septic tank. So there's language like around these kind of things, but that's really it. I mean, there's this, I probably just disclosed 80% of the land-specific words that we use, because we don't do land development. We do land flipping. Once you get into land development, it's an entire different language. Now we talk about, and I don't even know, because I don't do land development.
So you don't need to know.
Exactly, right.
Yeah. So while we wrap up talking about land here, I'd love to hear like your greatest hit. What's the deal? One deal that you've done that you're almost embarrassed to talk about because you've done so well on it.
Well, one deal that I do talk about it is a deal that we bought for $1,860 and we sold for $86,000. And that actually, and then we have a couple of deals that we actually hold on to that we bought for $3,000, between $3,000 and $4,000. I own 12 of them, and they're right in the path of growth. They're right above an area where a big development group has come in right now and bought 60,000 acres, and they're going to build basically a city there for about 300,000 people. It's in one of the big metro areas of the country where that's expanding quite a bit. And they are breaking ground in the next few months and building this out over the next 10, 20 years. But the fact that we are just north of that allowed us to buy, and with the fact that we bought this several years ago, knowing that at some point of time the city is going to grow there, we bought these properties for $3,000 to $4,000. Right now they're worth about $25,000 each, but I estimate that another 10, 15 years from now, they're going to be worth $250,000 to $500,000 each. So I own 12 of them, so it's going to be like $3 to $6 million in value, just basically sitting there, costing me the equivalent of, I think, like $1,000 or so in property taxes a year. So for $10,000 to $15,000 in property taxes over the next 10 to 15 years, I'm literally building up a large seven-figure asset pool that will help my daughter to her life, and it's a nice retirement kind of thing. Other deals we've done deals one time about literally, what was that, 100 properties for $92 each, and then sold each of them for about $5,000. So basically, we made $500,000 on a deal that we bought for just around $10,000.
Wow.
So things like that happen. The key is that every single one of our students, including ourselves, your average deal is like a $5,000 to $15,000 kind of deal. So similar to house wholesaling, that's kind of the margin. But every single one of our students, as they do this consistently, they will every once in a while come to a deal that makes them $30,000, $50,000, or even $100,000. That's pretty much normal. One of our students got in the deal, made $240,000, another one $280,000, and so on. So these deals happen. These are a little bit the outliers, but we call them our bread and butter deals. Our deals, like the $5,000 to $15,000 deals, they're very predictable. You send out X letters, you get X phone calls, you make X offers, you get X acceptances, you make X money, right? So you literally can design this as a business, as a scalable business that has predictable returns. And then these outliers come in as a nice cherry on top of it. And some of our students, when they get them, they even put them in their IRAs, so that they do them in their IRAs, so they really boost their retirement accounts with those too.
Yeah, can you expand on the idea of creating passive income and cash flow, either through this strategy or other strategies that you're using?
Would love to. So at the core of our hearts, we are cash flow investors. Now, when people hear land, they typically don't hear cash flow in the same sentence, because people actually out there are brainwashed to think land doesn't cash flow. And the truth is land does not cash flow if you hold on to it. So those 12 lots that I'm owning, they're not cash flowing. They're costing me money by having them, but they're appreciating. But when you flip land and when you do a sell of financing, basically installment sales with land, then you can actually make land cash flow. So again, if you take a property worth $50,000, you put it in a contract for $8,000, you sell it for $50,000, you get a 20% down payment, a $10,000 down payment. When you sell that property, you've gotten more money back than what you paid for the property. And now you're getting, let's say, a $600 a month cash flow for the next 8 years or 10 years. You're getting something like $72,000 in cash flow over the next 10 years on a property that you got all your money back already. So every single monthly payment that you get from day one on is really profit. So when you do that, we find that a lot of people, there's obviously, are there more people out there that can afford a $50,000 property? Or are there more people out there that can afford making a $5,000, $6,000, or $8,000 down payment and $500 a month? And obviously the answer is the latter, right? So we take properties that we buy for $1,000 and we sell them for $10,000 with a $1,000 down payment and $250 a month for the next 5 years, and we create cash flow. Now that cash flow doesn't last forever, right? But the thing is, if you do a deal that gets you, let's say, $400 a month in cash flow for the next 8 years, like a deal like I talked about earlier, a deal where you buy it for $3,000, it's worth $30,000, you get a $5,000 down payment, you get $350 a month. When you get $350 a month, and this cash flow will go on every single month for the next 12 years, then the next month you do another deal like that, then the next month you do another deal like that. Within 1 year, you've done 12 deals like that. At $350 a deal, you have built $4,400 in income, or $4,200 in income per month that comes in for the next 11 years. And if people understand that $4,000 for most American will pay for their rent or mortgage, will pay for their electricity bill, will pay for their car insurance, will pay for their gas, will pay for their car payment, and potentially even pay for their groceries, literally within 12 cash flow deals, most of America could technically be financially free and be able to basically quit their jobs. That's the power of cash flow of these simple land deals that you can almost do with your pocket change. So once you understand that, once we understood that, we put the pedal to the metal and we built this up into the high 7 figures, almost 6 figures a month in cash flow coming in. So, and then what we realized though, at that point is that at some point of time, you realize that people pay off these loans at some point of time. So you kind of have to keep going. So that was one thing. So we distinguish in 3 kinds of cash. We say one-time cash is cash that you work for it once, you get paid once. So a flip is a one-time cash. A seller financing is a temporary cash. You get cash flow, but the cash flow ends at some point of time. So at that point of time, just around 2009, when we realized that the notes, the kind of seller financing deals that we had created in 2003 and 2004 were starting to be paid off in 2009. So then we said, like, okay, this is great. So we can just rebuild them. We can keep going, or we can start taking some of the money that we've made in land flipping while continuing land flipping. We're land flipping to this day. Our plan is in the next 6 months to sell 180 pieces of land. While we continue land flip, let's take some of the profits and move it into what we call forever cash flow. And forever cash flow, or forever cash, is cash flow that never ends. So we started buying rental houses that cash flow, and we started also syndicating apartment complex deals, and that cash flow and that have the upside that we can improve and so on. And we're doing those things for 2 reasons only. Number one, to put the money that we've made into something else that cash flows, to create more cash flow. And number 3, to basically, well, for one reason only, to take the money that we've made and move it into additional assets and turn cash and cash flow into more cash flow. Because at the end of the day, cash flow and never-ending cash flow is what sets you free for life and allows you to live the lifestyle that you wanted to live without ever lifting a finger again and doing anything in your life if you don't want to.
A lot of great information there. I assume that's what your book is about?
That's what the book is about, Forever Cash. It's out of print right now, but there's still places you can get it if I can mention it later on or if you want. That's what the book is about. And that's our life philosophy. Like even when we buy cars, we follow it. Like we bought 2 new cars in December of last year. And instead of buying these cars cash, what we did is we took the money and bought 2 3 rental houses with it, and the rental houses produce the cash to pay for the cars, and now pay the cars off, and once the cars are paid off and worthless, with the cash, the rental houses spit out even more cash flow than they did before. So we're basically, everything in our life, financially speaking, everything in our life is driven around cash flow. We invest only in ourselves, and we invest in cash flow. So we're part of masterminds. We're actually in one together, and so on and so forth.
Wow. So Jack, you've shared a lot of great information with us. As we wrap it up here, is there anything I haven't asked you, or any parting thoughts you want to share with our listeners?
First of all, I'm super excited to be here and being able to share this. This is really my pet peeve about financial independence, about cash flow, about helping people find the easiest way and the simplest way to do things. What I always like to talk about, perhaps, and I said it already, is the reason, or you asked me earlier, is like, why did we pick that, or how did we stumble upon it? What I found when I started, and that perhaps the audience, the listener can relate to that. What I found when I started is that there's things that other people were doing in real estate that I could not even wrap my brain around and conceive ever being able to do, because my knowledge wasn't there, my confidence wasn't there, and my capability wasn't there. I didn't know anything. I had no experience. I had no knowledge. I had no confidence. I had no courage that I could actually do that. So what I did is instead of giving up, what a lot of people do in that moment, is I kept going, and I kept going at real estate from different angles until I found the angle that would work for me in that time period, with my level of confidence, with my level of cash too, with my level of experience, with my level of courage, and those kind of things. And because of that, I was able to become successful. I see so many people tackle areas of real estate and fail because they get in too deep over their head with things and methods, with ways that are just perhaps too complicated for them at the time. Yet other people I see striving in those areas because they have those things already. I didn't. Now, fast forward, what as land flipping has given me is the confidence to go after bigger things, is the capability to understand real estate, is the cash to go into bigger deals too, is all those different things. And because of that, we then were able to go and start buying houses. And because of that, we're now syndicating $7.5 million apartment complexes. If 15 years ago somebody would have said, here's a $7.5 million apartment complex, I would have run the other way. Now it's nothing special. It's nothing. I don't even lose sleep over it. Neither do you, right? But people tend to compare our chapter 20 with their chapter 1, and you can't do that. If you're in chapter 1, you want to pick something in real estate that actually makes sense for where you are, and then go from there. And I found for myself that land was the perfect thing for us to get started and even to stay with, because even in land, there's so many different angles and directions you can go that we have never abandoned land because we absolutely love it.
Oh, that is great advice. Jack, how would our listeners get a hold of you?
Well, we have, if they want to get the book, if I may mention that,
Sure.
You can get the book at the website called forevercashbook.net. There it's pretty much, I have a few hundred left, and then it's out of print, and it's out of print, but these few hundred are basically literally in my garage. So through forevercashbook.net, you can still get one, and we'll ship them to you. And other than that, to the website, jackbosch.com or landprofitgenerator.com, or we also have a Facebook group called Forever Cash, Land for Pennies, and there's a lot of our successful students are hanging out there, and it's really a support group for our students, and where everyone is helping each other become even more successful in this industry.
Jack, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I just learning about how you're flipping and investing in land. And creating passive income and cash flow that way, and learning more about your Forever Cash financial philosophy. It's really been a pleasure. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed it, Brian.
This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB & Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.